I started this work 15 years ago and did not dream that I'd be on the stage like this speaking before such a distinguished audience. So esteemed colleagues, I'm here to share some of FishWise's journey in working closely with seafood companies to help them strengthen their operations today so that they can have thriving seafood businesses into the future. Along the way, they've become champions for the oceans and the people that depend upon them, which is all of us. And I'm also here to learn about your journeys. Together, and with friends and colleagues around the world, we have the opportunity to do something truly great, to establish a seafood legacy. So FishWise is a seafood consultancy that works to improve supply and working conditions in three main ways. First, we advance private sector leadership by partnering with seafood companies to realize ambitious, responsible sourcing commitments. For example, all of the fresh and frozen seafood sold by Target Corporation now meets a rigorous, responsible sourcing guideline. And now they're focused on the seafood in other departments within their stores and especially the working conditions in their supply chains. We also build collaborations. Some challenges are bigger than any one company can solve on their own. And so FishWise sparks learning and innovation by convening stakeholders together to create new strategies and approaches, especially for traceability and human rights. We bring together unlikely partners that enable us to see a problem from a different but necessary perspective. And finally, we share knowledge. So hopefully, if ourselves and our colleagues are successful in these first two approaches, we'll have something meaningful and effective to share with industry, governments, and NGOs. Because we want to accelerate progress overall. And this is why I'm here with you today. So I will talk some about the illegal activities that Fatima has just shared that occur in global seafood supply chains, and also, in particular, the response of North American companies. These businesses have made public commitments, they perform their due diligence, and they're on their own journey of learning, collaboration, and action. Fatima just shared powerful experiences regarding these issues that she has seen in Southeast Asia. But this is a global issue, and it's not just seafood. Globally, across multiple industries, 25 to 40 million people are working under coercive or forced labor conditions. That amounts to 5 people out of every 1,000. While most of the reporting has focused on Southeast Asia and seafood, this is a global problem that has occurred in other places, including the United States, the United Kingdom, and New Zealand waters, among others. The sustainability director of Thai Union, one of the world's largest seafood companies, has said that companies might say that they'll just source from another country. But I would like to know where that country is, because it exists in slavery exists in supply chains around the world. So there's often a connection between environmental damage and labor abuses. The lack of transparency and accountability in fishing often leads to overfishing and diminished stocks. Captains have to work harder and go farther for fewer fish, which increases their fuel and maintenance costs. They feel more pressure to turn a profit. With less fish to go around, some companies cut costs by relying on inexpensive migrant labor. They cut crew size and pay, and they ignore important safety measures. Often, experts consider this transnational organized crime due to its connections also with illegal, unregulated, and unreported fishing. And these operations sometimes traffic weapons, drugs, wildlife, and people. Again, the lack of monitoring and enforcement, especially in the high seas, allows these destructive and harmful activities to persist. The North American and European markets became aware of these issues through the work of Fatima, the Guardian, and the Associated Press. And in fact, I was at the headquarters of a large retailer when one of these stories came out. The first thing their CEO asked was, "Is this happening in our supply chains, and what are we doing about it?" My answer was that yes, it is most likely happening in your supply chains, as it is with many other large companies. And it is often out of sight and your immediate control. He said, "We must do more. Our customers are trusting us to take care of these problems. What will our customers and shareholders think of us if we ignore this issue?" So the first step of their journey was to better understand what was happening in their seafood business. But I want to be clear that there are many, many responsible actors. So we don't want to unfairly associate the entire industry with these abuses. The problem is that it's very hard to bring transparency to some parts of their supply chains. And for responsible producers and suppliers, it can be difficult to prove that something is not happening, which I'm sure is very frustrating. So usually big retailers do not make public commitments quickly. That takes time, deliberation, and care to build internal support for action. However, in this case, the abuses were made public, raising the risk of bad press. And the businesses themselves believed strongly in fixing these issues. So they did make public commitments. Here on the left is a picture of Chris Ratto, who was then the director of corporate social responsibility at Safeway, which is now a company with 2,400 stores across North America. In a room much like this, he said, "It is not easy to be here in front of all of you. Safeway does not have all of the answers to these problems, but we are committed to work with you to find them." So in this way, he gave permission to companies to embrace the challenge and to start working on them as well. So at FishWise, we then began due diligence work with them. We mapped their supply chains, we identified and prioritized products and sources of high risk, and we communicated the importance of this issue with their suppliers. We improved data collection in their traceability systems, and we verified the conditions that were reported when possible. None of this is easy, and that's why we call it a journey. Most suppliers responded well, and as a result, they improved their relationships with their important customers by becoming part of the solution. The work continues, and as we peel back a layer of the onion, there's always yet another layer. And that is why collaboration and continued learning with fellow businesses and stakeholders is important. So for example, at a recent meeting of the Seafood Alliance for Legality and Traceability, which is a new global multi-stakeholder learning and collaboration platform, which is open to all of you, we explored how electronic catch documentation and traceability systems might help to ensure that workers are safe and legal. And when we come up with good answers and case studies, we'll be able to share them globally. So the steps that I've described today have worked to bring some progress to North American companies and their supply chains, though there's much more work to be done and we need more partners. So here in Japan, through this symposium, I'm happy to see that there is strong focus on collaboration and learning. With a good base of information and relationships, companies have started to take action and begin their due diligence. In March 2018, FishWise will launch at the Seafood Expo North America a new social responsibility roadmap for businesses. It's informed by industry and social experts, and it will be a free online platform with tools and actionable guidance for assessing and improving the social responsibility in seafood supply chains. With such a roadmap, perhaps a company will then be ready to make a commitment. This can be either private or public. We have one partner who made a private commitment, and then they made progress against that for 2 years, and then they went public. So either way, it is an effective tool for mobilizing employees around a common goal and to holding oneself accountable in a public way. So I hope you find some of these thoughts and approaches to be helpful in your own journey. And I'm here to learn from you, and maybe FishWise can make some small contribution to your tremendous work. Together, we can realize a world with a plentiful seafood supply that makes a significant contribution to the food security, livelihoods, and well-being of a growing population, while also supporting productive and resilient oceans. Thank you, and I look forward to further discussion.